was freshly 18. I had moved out of my parents' house in my small hometown in SoCal and moved to San Luis Obispo. I loved every minute of it. It was nothing like Southern California. The people were 100% nicer. And the people were just my type. Everything for the first 6 months of me living there was a dream. Honestly, I was in love with the place. I loved going to my classes. I made amazing friends, and every day I had a smile on my face, which is rare for me. But all good things do come to an end, and mine came to a screeching halt. Let me preface this by saying that I am, in my opinion, no way worth stalking. I am no model, no beauty queen, and no fashionista. You can usually catch me in high-waist shorts and some flannel, and my signature look of chronic bitch face. So for me to be targeted was a real shock, and plays into me denying being followed. It all started one day when I was coming back from class. Every day at the same time on the same corner, there was a guy who looked a little older than me, doing the sign spinning thing for the local pizza place. He seemed to have boundless energy for hours, and had some interesting moves. So I would sneak a peek, just to see what he was doing. The first day we made eye contact, he gave me this giant smile that unnerved me, but I smiled right back. This happened for about 2 weeks. He would fight to make eye contact with me, and I would try my best to stare at the red light. The day it became a problem was when he walked in front of a car to lean in my window and tell me my hair looked soft. To avoid confrontation, I thanked him and rolled up the window. The entire time he was smiling and waving at me as I was driving away. I told my friends and they all laughed it off. Keep in mind, SLO is a super safe place. So they soothed me and went back to our usual routine of playing Super Smash Bros. I continued my life as usual for a few silent weeks, until I was at school and made a beeline for the smoking section for a cigarette. All of my friends were there waiting for me, as I was pulling a cigarette from my bag and not really paying attention to where I was walking. I ended up walking into someone, and guess who? I looked up immediately to profusely apologize, and swift as can be, he grabbed my hair. It was really long, and held me in a death grasp. He kept breathlessly saying, "Your hair is so pretty, I need to make it a belt," and was about to literally cut my hair with this knife he pulled out of his pocket. I was panicking, a level 10 meltdown. This guy had me in his grasp and had a knife. As quick as it started, it was over. My giant and lovely friend Dylan grabbed his arm and twisted it back, causing him to drop the knife. The guy took off screaming expletives at me and anyone in earshot. I have to be honest, I was shaking and crying from fear. Everyone was consoling me and called campus security, who in turn called the police, and I gave my statement. I went home shaken up that night, literally looking over my shoulder everywhere I went. I swear this guy spawned places like it was Halo. When I went home, I realized that he had actually cut off some of my hair in the process. I was so pissed off that I decided to just cut it all off. I left my house with my aunt, and we made our way to the downtown, to this sassy hair salon, and they gave me a super cute cut. In a way, I felt better. The one thing he was so obsessed with was gone. Not that I was cutting it off for that reason. He messed it up badly enough for people to notice my hair was off. And I said c'est la vie to that. Not even 2 hours later, I got a phone call from the hair salon. You had to fill out a card with information when you go in. That a man had come in requesting they give him the hair they cut off me a few hours prior. He tried to claim that I was his daughter, and me cutting my hair off was against our religion. And he was infuriated. The woman called me to say that she had kicked the man out because she knew it was bull. At this point, I was on edge and I didn't even want to leave my room. The entire night I contemplated what to do. I was clearly being followed, and he wasn't letting up. I was so shaken up that I decided to skip my Friday class and just stay inside for a day or two to gather my bearings. My uncle came home from his job. He's gone for weeks at a time. He's an engineer for a military company that makes night vision cameras. He brought one of the newest models made for tanks to the house, so that he could see the features more. He aids in design and sales, and would bring home items to tinker with to create a better sales pitch. We played the whole night with the little camera, and had fun with the kids, niece and nephew. I have a terrible history of insomnia, so when everyone had tired out from playing with the camera, I was awake in my room. I heard it, so quiet and yet so loud. Someone was walking into our backyard. I could hear the footsteps. And then, even worse, the creaking of the swing in the tree. I listened for about 10 minutes without moving to make sure what I was hearing was real. I didn't want to terrify the children since they were so young, but knew that I needed to do something, so I creeped into the living room and went to look at the swing, which didn't have anyone in it, but was swinging violently like someone got off and ran. I assumed from me turning off the light. I woke my uncle and my aunt and told them what I heard. We double-checked all the locks on the doors and they dismissed it as me overreacting to nothing. A few days passed and they told me they were going to be heading up further north to visit my other aunt. I tried to seem like I was okay, so I didn't beg them to stay. I told them I was going to have friends staying the night at the house, and they said that was fine. The layout of our house is basically a 2-story house, but the bottom was a giant garage and the top floor was the actual house. Which I want to detail that there is a staircase that leads up to the house, and I would always lock the door that separates the door to the garage and the house. My aunt was notorious for forgetting to lock the outside door on the bottom floor, and the door to the house. My friends came over, and we were hanging out when we heard the bottom door slam open so loud we all stopped moving. My instincts kicked in, and I ran to the garage door and locked the door just in time to hear hands slamming on the door. then heard the person run to the patio, up the stairs which was already locked, and the curtains drawn. So we never saw the face. We were all shaken up, but they wanted to stay the night since they didn't want to walk to their cars until morning, and we all agreed it was for the best. But at the last second, I decided to take the night vision camera and set it on the outside porch railing, looking down on the swing. I was going to prove once and for all that I wasn't messing around. The morning came and went. Nothing interesting happened. I left the camera outside to record for 3 days and stayed at my friend's house for the remainder of my family being away. When my uncle returned, he wanted to know why the camera was outside, and I told him my reasoning. And he wasn't mad. He helped me upload the footage. We combed through hours of just raccoon and animals until we saw it. A male with the same build as the guy who had attacked me. He had a mask on, sitting on the swing for hours. He would walk around the house, try to open the doors, try to get into the garage. The footage for the entire week had him arriving anywhere between 2:30 to 4:30 a.m., doing his routine walk around the house, hoping for an unlocked door, and then leaving. My uncle, aunt, all of us were mortified, watching him creep around the house for close to a week. We decided to go to the police. But unfortunately, we could not use the video we had accrued due to the gear actually belonging to a company that had not given an okay for the gear and video to be used. Legal loophole, trust me. I was screaming internally the entire time. I gave my statement, and the police patrolled my house for around a week or so, not seeing any activity. My aunt and uncle refused to leave me alone a second time around. And just as quick as the stalking started, it stopped. No more nighttime visits, no more following me. I moved out of the area shortly thereafter to move back to LA for my career in film. But honestly, when I think about it, I will still look over my shoulder. Around 10 years ago, I was a student on study leave, so I was studying from home for my finals. Being a procrastinator, I naturally started revision late in the afternoon and worked through the night till early morning. This worked out for my dad. Since he would work late shifts, he would return home around midnight after catching the last train home, so I could drive to pick him up from the train station. I didn't mind, since I had recently passed my driving test and loved the quiet roads. He would call me about a stop or two before getting off the train, so that gave me time to drive to the station. So, as usual, I received his call and proceeded to exit the front door. Just as I did that, I saw a tall figure standing opposite my driveway, standing right in front of my car, blocking the exit. I don't know how long he was standing there before I saw him, but I live right next to an open space park in London, so seeing people like that isn't at all uncommon, especially at this time of night. They are usually druggies or loafers who hang around near the entrance, but they do clear off as soon as they see me exit the house. But this time it was different. This person just stood there mumbling and groaning to himself. He was wearing a long black coat with the hood up, standing perfectly still, with his back facing towards me. I waited near the front door for a little while, but I didn't know what to do, so I closed the door. I don't think he saw me. I went to my parents' bedroom where my mother was sleeping and woke her up to tell her about the strange person outside. Their bedroom faces the front of the house, so we peeked out the window with the lights off. He had started pacing from one end of our driveway to the other, with his eyes fixated on our house, and he had one hand inside his jacket. I told my mother to call the police, but she was reluctant to do so. She never speaks to the authorities, even in emergency situations, because English isn't her first language, so she never had the confidence to talk to anyone who didn't speak her language. I also struggled with severe anxiety back then. To an extent, still do today. So it was out of the question for me to call the police. I could barely muster the courage to leave the house, so in this situation, I felt like a deer glaring helplessly at the oncoming headlights of death. The man then stopped and proceeded to walk towards our house. He was holding something which resembled a black rod or stick of some sort. It was too dark to see what it was, and I was literally paralyzed with fear. It seemed as if he was trying to look through our window in the living room, but the curtains were drawn. I think he was trying to peek through the spaces between the curtains. I'm guessing he didn't see anything because the lights were off. I kept the light on in my study room, but that faces the garden out back. He turned around and dropped what he was holding in our recycling basket, before walking off into the darkness of the open space. There are no lights in the park next to us, so it's pitch black. Our recycling baskets in London don't have lids, so they are open. As soon as he walked off, me and my mother walked towards the basket, curious to see what he dropped in there, and were horrified to find that it was a knife. It was very long and was encased in a thick black scale-like sheath. It was heavy. I don't know anything about knives to make judgment, but this thing can do some real damage. My mother immediately put the knife in the main general use garbage tin. While driving home with my dad, we discussed what had happened. Since we didn't see the person's face or see where he went after disappearing into the darkness, we decided not to report this to the authorities. We never saw him again. Looking back at this incident, I should have called the police. We were lucky he didn't try to break into our house, or don't know what would have happened. My family were in danger, and I just stood there watching it happen. I've since used this as motivation to work on my anxiety, so I'm better equipped at handling situations if it were to happen again. I still can't figure out what his intentions were or why he targeted our house in particular. I named this story Litterbug because in high school, we were actively told to recycle, and students who disposed of an item incorrectly, plastic and general waste, were called litterbugs. This happened a little over 3 months ago in July. I'm still scared shitless of walking home alone to this day. So, important details first. I live in a fairly populated and safe part of Toronto, and I go to a university about 20 to 25 minutes away by public transit, not including the 10-minute walk from my house to the subway, 10 minutes in the subway, and roughly 10 to 15 more minutes on the bus. I was just starting second semester, and to my utter dismay, all of my courses were in the morning, all except for one. It was my Aboriginal Studies class, which was held every Tuesday from 6 to 9 p.m. My professor at the time was known for rarely showing up to class and instead setting up online classes to make up for her absences. So I often found myself showing up to class only to find that it was either cancelled or it was being held online. I never checked my email. It was a very rainy Tuesday night, and as usual, I headed to the university to go to my class. I entered the room and sat there for a good 15 minutes, waiting for everyone else to show up. At that point, I started to notice something was weird. I checked my email from last night to find this. Dear students, unfortunately, I'm still sick from last week. It is really slow going, and I am about 50% improved. But I'm not enough improved to make it to tomorrow's class. We also have gotten a ton of snow where I live, and the driveway is blocked. However, I do not want to delay our class schedule, so I'm going to hold class online tomorrow. I will be sending you a link to access the class, and you will be able to access it from anywhere with internet access. There will not be video functionality, but there will be audio, chat, and textful communication. Please check your email for a follow-up message with a link for our class tomorrow. So this class ended up being cancelled again, and I was too pissed off to follow the link to the online class. So I packed up my shit and decided to go home. I got off the subway around 6:40 p.m. and I started to walk home. It was a 10-minute walk from the subway station, in which I had to walk on the sidewalk, cross the road, turn right, and turn left again into my condo. Sorry if this is a little hard to grasp. Besides, nothing dangerous has ever happened to me before, so I assumed my walk home would be a safe one, as usual. Nothing struck me as scary until about 3 minutes into the walk, when I heard a man's voice quietly murmur something. I also had earbuds in, so I didn't hear a word and just brushed it off as someone talking on the phone or something. As I took another step, I heard it again. I took off my earbuds and turned around this time, and saw a tall man with an exceptionally large build staring at me and smiling. I stupidly pointed at myself to say, "You talking to me?" And he yelled back, "Yes, you," while smiling. He quickly turned around and jaywalked the street with his friends. Being paranoid as hell, I looked on as he seemingly walked in the opposite direction I was heading, and we were separated by 2 streets. This wasn't enough to erase my worries though. I was still scared as fuck. I felt it. I knew he crossed the street, and that he was not likely to bother me again. But something just didn't feel right. My heart started pounding like crazy, and I felt the need to look back every 5 seconds. I was around 5 minutes away from my house when I noticed how empty my neighborhood was. Not a single person in sight, which added even more to the creep factor. All of a sudden, I had this sensation that could only be described as the hair on the back of my neck standing up. I slowly turned around again. I almost shat my pants. There he was, at the edge of the road, standing there. He then started to fucking chase me. It all happened so fast. It took me a second for me to go from, oh god, how did he even manage to find, to, holy shit, run. The guy was way fitter than I initially anticipated. As he was starting to catch up to me, I was absolutely terrified. Even with all the adrenaline pumping throughout my body, I was barely able to sprint in my huge, bulky hunter rain boots. Thankfully, without slipping or falling, I managed to run into my condo lobby before he could catch me. I was panting, shaking, and crying, and everyone in the lobby was staring at me. I looked inside the glass walls and saw him stop, look around, and leave when he couldn't find me. I made one of the security guards walk me to my room, and I didn't dare come out for the rest of the night. I later figured that when the man first crossed the road, he was watching and followed me from the other side of the road, and jaywalked when he saw that I was entering a quieter area where I could easily be isolated. It scares me that if I wasn't so overly paranoid that night, he could have easily grabbed me from behind, abducted me, or who knows, maybe much worse. So, Mr. Rapist, serial killer, or whatever the hell you are, let's not meet.